Rimworld is a tough place to live, and one of the best ways to make a name for yourself is by selling drugs. With this in mind, Kevin and his two accomplices set out to build a drug empire, selling Flake, Yayo and Wake Up. We started with building some simple rooms and organized a nearby building as our lab where we're gonna research and craft necessary items. And while everyone was focused on building, I was busy planning our future farm where we're gonna grow psychoid leaves. I also designed a small section of the farm for rice. It wasn't like we could sustain ourselves with only drugs, though it was gonna take a while before we could make them, including drug lab and then drugs itself. In the meantime, we chose Lyra as our leader and gave Kevin a forester role to boost harvesting. With this, maintaining farm would be a lot easier. And researching drugs at this stage of the game would be useless. Instead, we're gonna go with battery. We're also gonna need some stone blocks for building walls. And with all this going on, we really had our hands full with organizing the base, including building a kitchen and storage rooms. Moving on, we put a heavy focus on researching batteries and solar panels because our food supply wouldn't last long and we needed access to electricity considering that it was already time to harvest rice. Luckily for us, our science team put in some overtime and managed to research solar panels, and we were able to build a few to keep the power running, which meant we could start making simple meals. And it seemed that other villagers discovered our intentions of becoming the next drug superpower and tried to stop us, though they definitely needed more troops to do that. In the meantime, we got a crash pod with a potential member of our enterprise. She had good skills, so I saved her, but we didn't have any room left, so she was gonna sleep in a cave for several days. Though it was convenient because she was afraid of light, and eventually she joined out the ranks and we quickly built a room for her. And while everyone was focused on their tasks, we gonna need everyone to build the wall that will protect the future and prosperity of our company. At the same time, we began researching microelectronics, which would give us access to a comms console and a high-tech research bench, essential for advancing our capabilities. And while we were enjoying our time, we got a quest from the Empire to protect a refugee. For that, we gonna get some honor. Though it was challenging to kill this hare, we succeeded and bestowed the title on Lyra. The ceremony went grandiose and gave us a boost in mood for several days, which was pretty helpful taking into account that we had constant debuff of our belief. On that occasion we celebrated and increased the size of our farm, that way we would have even more psychoid leaves. But one thing is for sure, that we would need a kill box to protect our stuff. Though I was concerned about its effectiveness, I hope that it will help us to fight against enemies. In the meantime, we did some renovation works in our lab, because it was getting really crampy here and we needed to create some space for our drug lab. But then we got attacked, and they were the real deal. And at this moment I thought that was gonna be the end of our little backyard project. Somehow we managed to survive, without any of us getting killed, but they nearly destroyed our energy and several of our members were in critical condition. After that fierce battle, we spent several days regaining our strength. Everyone was beaten, except Kevin. He was the only one who went back to work right away. After a little rest, we continued with setting up our drug lab, and at the same time we finished all the necessary research to finally produce drugs, and psychoid leaves were also ready for harvest. And some tribals decided that we were an easy target to attack, but we showed them that they shouldn't mess with us. After that, we made a meeting to discuss the future strategy and the way we were gonna play our cards. Because we finally made some psychoid, which meant that we could forget about mental breaks, and our lab was finally ready and running, and we could finally make real money. But to make sure that we could sell drugs, we're gonna need logistics and trucks. But in our situation, only option was livestock, and we were lucky to find buffaloes nearby. And to make up for that, we put a high-tech bench and comms console, which was especially helpful to connect us straight to our bars in the space. Needless to say how much it would boost our profits. But before speaking about profits, we were gonna need to make product first, and I added an additional table to increase our output. At the same time, we were working on our researching lab, and if we're speaking about researching, we were gonna need some guns and armor to protect ourselves, and especially our product, so it was our next priority. The next several days, we were doing only two things: sleeping and making drugs, and once we had enough stuff for sale, we set up a caravan to the nearby village. Once we arrived, we sold 328 Yayo for 5,331 silver and bought Nutrimine and components with steel. In the result, we made 1,461 silver in profit. That was good for our first caravan, and after that deal, we invested some resources in our researching fund and built an additional high-tech bench. And with business going great, we kept increasing our farm with psychoid leaves. But we still put high focus on researching, and at around the same time a ship was passing by. Though we didn't have much product on our hands, we sold 116 Yayo for around 2 grand, but bought steel and components worth roughly the same value. And there was a guy who fell out of the space with 0 skills in both shooting and melee, so he was pretty much useless, and I just left him alone. And we pushed forward with our new farm because we suddenly didn't have any psychoid leaves, which could really harm our reputation. But at least we finally finished building our factory where we're gonna produce guns and possibly even sell them. And while we were busy with expanding, some guinea pigs thought it would be a great idea to put some pressure on us, and it didn't really work out so well for them. But what really worked out was that we finally harvested psychoid leaves and added more drug stations to increase our output, though we were still lacking some hands, and it would be really great to get some new faces here. And speaking of new recruits, we got a quest to save a woman from EMP and smoke grenadiers? Well, anyway, we accepted it, and to our surprise, she had all decent round skills, but I was genuinely curious how they were gonna fight us with launchers and grenades. But before that, we needed to wait while they went through our labyrinth, like in some clinic, but in contrary, it didn't take us much time to kill them. Turned out it wasn't a good idea attacking with the smoke launcher, and by some magic reasons, we got our farm on fire, to the point when Helbig had to save crops. And while we were messing around, a caravan showed up. We sold 150 Yayo for 2500 silver and bought Nutrimine and plasteel and made around 1 grand. At the same time, Tromba showed up, and to our luck, the caravan was still there, so it took only 1 bullet to create the chaos. And we got ourselves a free Tromba corpse. After our hustle, we concentrated on our defense and built some turrets in the kill box. Because something was telling me that in the near future we were gonna need them, but for now we concentrated on producing as much drugs as we could and sent a caravan. And Kevin developed addiction to psychoid, which was expectable, but in the future he was gonna need much stronger drugs to sustain himself, like Yayo. But everyone was gonna be there at some point, so it was only fair to share this with other factions. We traded 325 Yayo for plasteel, steel and monosword and went to 0. Back on our base we had plenty of resources and we added a new drug to our menu, Wake Up. At the same time we had new delivery of psychoid leaves, and to increase the variety of our products even more we added go juice. And our timing was perfect, because a nearby ship was passing by and we sold Yayo, Wake Up and Go Juice with a value of almost 7 grand, but after buying Nutrimine and plasteel it went down to around 3 grand. It was our biggest deal so far, but it couldn't last long, with the new rate looming over our company. To be honest, that was quite close, considering that there is still fire. Yeah, right over there. Jesus, they would definitely get themselves killed. They even destroyed our rooms, but that was quite a victory. The only issue was our morale, so I gave them some psych IT. Here, here and here. Yeah, that's better. Little by little, we regained our grounds and continued with our normal routine of making drugs. We kept working and expanding our network with other factions, to the point where our value skyrocketed above 100 grand. But what's next? Making our way towards escaping this planet, or maybe keeping our domination on the drug market? That's a question for the next day.